All right, so we are back, guys, with another episode of Reminder Remedy. If you are tuning in from the new YouTube page, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I am just so excited about today's guest, and I think it's just like perfect timing because I always say that like my guests and my clients are almost like aligned with whatever energy I'm admitting, because I actually had a conversation with my husband last night around some of the overwhelm that I have been experiencing when it comes to getting back into creating content. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about, content and Instagram and all the things that I know listeners are like pulling up to learn about. But I want to kind of just first start with you and learning more about you. So we're going to officially welcome Ariel Carr to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, so we are actually in Black Maternal Health Week. And so I first want to tell you congratulations, because I see that you're pregnant with twins.
Yes, I am, and they are growing, and I'm starting to feel their weight now. I'm about to enter the third trimester, so yeah.
Oh my goodness. So tell me, like, how has that been? Like, how has it been, being a new mom, running a business, experiencing twins, which, is just a whole nother process in general. Like, what has that done for you?
Well, I had to get into a whole new mindset, first of all, because I never grew up around babies. Like, I don't know anything about babies. So I have to now learn about motherhood and like newborn care and pregnancy in general. Like, I never had any friends yet. Like, I'm the first friend of my friend group to like experience this. So I'm planning everything as I go. And then when it comes to my business, I'm trying to find ways to automate as much as I can, because I have to fund my own maternity leave since I work for myself. So I have to figure out, how can I systematize? How can I get my team ready so I can just go in peace? And that's kind of been my challenge so far, besides the pregnancy.
Yeah, no, that's so funny that you say that, because I completely resonate with like the first of friends. I mean, I'm not a new mom. I guess I am kind of a new mom because I have a 1-year-old, but I have 4 children under the age of 7. And so when I had my 7-year-old, I was the first friend. And just now, like, all of my friends are starting to have babies, and it's like, okay, like they're calling me. But I can remember something that I always joke about was, I was probably 3 weeks postpartum, and I was running a full sales team. And, I just knew nothing but just like work. And to your point, I had in my mind decided, okay, once the baby gets here, I'm going to kind of take a maternity leave, but like, this is busy season, so I still got to kind of do a little bit, right? I didn't have automations or funnels or any of that stuff. And I remember going to a mom's group and posting in the group, like, how do y'all check email? Like, how do you get things done? Like, I feel like I just cannot do anything. Like, I can't sit my baby down. And they just started like going in on me. Like, first of all, mom, you don't need to be doing anything, and I just took such offense, because I immediately was like, well, clearly these women don't run businesses and they don't know the first about like what it is. And now, 7 years, I feel like such a fool, because they were like really giving me the real, which is, no, ma'am, like, you will not be able to do both, right? Like, you will be on baby schedule in the beginning, and everything else will have to come afterwards. And so one of the things that you said that I think is just so helpful now that, so many of us are full-time entrepreneurs or content creators, we do have models like you to be able to really think about, how do we plan in terms of batching content? How do we set things up? Mm-hmm. Because ultimately we want to be able to create this lifestyle where we can just kind of get away. So talk to me a little bit about, when it comes to, work-life balance for you, and I don't even know if we can call it that anymore, but like, what does that look like and feel like for you running this type of business model?
So pre-pregnancy, I was doing a lot. I was wearing a lot of hats, and I had one team member. Now I realized I have to slow down a lot, and I cannot do as much as I think I can. Like, I just learned And my doctor was like, you need to rest. Like my blood pressure was getting, up there. And she was like, look, you need to like chill. So now I'm like, all right, this is weird for me because I'm like a super productive person. I do a lot of things at once and like I crank things out during the day. So this whole pivot to like learning how to rest has honestly been a little hard, like learning to let other people help me and take care of me. And I just kind of like chill. I'm not used to at all. So that's kind of the difference between like what I was doing pre-pregnancy to now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm smiling so hard because anyone that listens to the show knows that my biggest request of anyone is to build in rest when it comes to increasing productivity. Obviously with pregnancy, it's just not even a question. But in general, I think that sleep is a superpower. I think that it allows us to tap into a level of creativity and a level of productivity that otherwise would just not exist if we did not allow our bodies the time to replenish. But for many of us, learning to slow down and rest is easier said than done. So when you think about, like you just said, like it's been a learning experience, it's been hard. Like, what is that really like day to day? Like, is that you like ultimately saying, I'm just gonna nap right now? Or do you build in things into your calendar? Like, what's the real tactical side of sleep and rest?
I do not have like a schedule for it, but when my body is like telling me something, I listen immediately. So I don't try to be like, oh, let me just answer a few more emails like before I go take a nap. Like, no, if I need a nap, I'm going to take a nap. And then luckily, like I have a husband that stays at home too. So that has been super helpful, super supportive. Like he, I don't pick things up anymore, like at all. Not that I did that too much in the first place. He's always been a gentleman, but like he's even more cautious with me. He's even more mindful. He checks in with me and makes sure that like I get the rest I need. I was always the type of person to get 8 hours of sleep. I've always prioritized that in my life because I like sleep. So I keep that a priority. And then I just understand that when my body's like, okay, you're doing too much, I listen.
Yeah. And it really is just that simple, right? Like I listen. So tell me a little bit about how you got to this place, right? Because when I go to your page, I am just like, wow, like this is like the dream life, like work from anywhere, create content on your phone. I know that when you first got started, you made like 100,000 in 90 days, just off of an ebook. For many people, especially moms, and I keep talking about moms because when I think about where we are in terms of the state of work, we have dealt with the great resignation, and particularly working moms are like, I need more freedom and flexibility. I've given all of my talents to corporate America, and now I want to be able to use those talents, but in a way that serves me and my family. So talk to me about how you kind of ended up here and got like in this space that you can help people do that.
Yeah, so it all started because I wanted to have multiple streams of income. So prior to launching my first ebook, I was in the music industry. And so I had a management company where I managed 3 artists, and I was doing the entertainment industry for like 4 years. However, money was not being made consistently. Like being a manager, you take 20% of what your artists make. And if my artists weren't making anything, I surely was not making anything at all. And so it was hard try to do that independent artist route. But I learned a lot. I learned how to manage their social media accounts. I got one of my artists verified. I grew their following. I started studying the algorithm because Instagram was our go-to source for finding fans. And so when I pivoted, I was like, okay, I had to get out the music industry, but I still want to be an entrepreneur. I got a job though. And while working, I was like, all right, I'm going to release an ebook on everything I know about building an Instagram account because I learned from the past. And so that's when I released it back in 2020. And to my surprise, I honestly didn't plan to reach 6 figures on a $20 ebook, but that's exactly what happened. It all came together because it was an opportune time for people to learn how they can grow their account, how they can start an online brand, how they can start to monetize and sell using organic marketing methods. So it was a very opportune time mixed with my strategies actually gave people results.
Yeah. And I think that something that you said is key. Like, it was a good time because, again, we saw people leave their jobs, they're trying to build their business. I had clients who literally were like, I don't even know how to work Instagram, you know? And so they were like in this place where they had gone from just posting it leisurely to now needing to monetize it, right? So great opportunity. Yes. So now we're 2 years post that. Where do you feel like your greatest pivots have had to be in your business?
Yes. So I changed my business model completely end of last year. So before that, I was selling, ebooks, and they were low ticket. So they were very affordable, like under $100 products. Now I wanted to pivot. Instead of marketing to the masses and working revenue by volume, I wanted to do it where I could work less and get paid more. So I figured that I launched a high ticket offer. So I launched a group coaching program for, a smaller group of people that I could focus on and that I could really impact more like on a day-to-day. So instead of someone buying my ebook and like they may or may not implement it, they may or may not see results depending on their, how much they work with it. I'd rather just be right there with people who are like, I'm super serious about this. I am going to pay the higher investment because I want to better myself and I want to learn one-on-one with you. So I pivoted my model from just ebooks and low ticket stuff to like now a high ticket approach.
So let's talk a little bit about what ultimately made you pivot though, right? So I want to even think about, the person that's sitting next to me in my space, right? Because one of the things that you said is like, I want to work less and I want to earn more, right? Which is, I feel like everybody's mantra, right? And so one of the things that I have clients do is really identify like, okay, where am I spending the most time? What do I love doing? What's making me the most money? Am I spending the most time doing stuff that actually doesn't make me the most money? And kind of rotating the model so that we can craft it based off like their needs. So what was like your process for determining, okay, the 100,000 was good, but this is what I want going forward? Like, what were some of those key drivers?
It was the amount of really customer support that came with working with so many people. So I had 10,000 people buy my digital products. 10,000 people is a lot to deal with when they're like, I can't find the ebook link anymore. Or like, I have this question about it. Or like, it ended up being like a headache, even for my hired help. Like I eventually hired a virtual assistant, but that's all she was doing was answering emails and answering customer inquiries. And it really wasn't helpful to the business in the sense that like we could move forward because we couldn't strategize. We couldn't plan ahead. We always had to answer like the daily just emails, right? So I said, I want to have a smaller clientele. I want to have a smaller clientele, honestly, because it's just less of a headache to deal with a smaller amount of people than a larger amount of people. And so that's the reason I made that pivot. And I also feel like it's easier to scale something with a higher price to get to the 7-figure mark. Like I wanted to get to $1 million within a year revenue wise, than to say like, oh my gosh, I have to find 100 new leads today to buy my $20 ebook. I'd rather just say like, I got to find one person today to sign up for my group coaching program and then I'm good.
Right. Yeah. So when you think about even being able to scale, does that look like outsourcing more? Do you think that there is a certain point where people need to delegate tasks like earlier or sooner? Like what's kind of your approach for making it where you're working purely in your zone of genius?
Yeah, so that's going to come with delegation for sure. And the first person I hired, and I would advise anyone to hire, is an assistant that can kind of wear like multiple hats. And do, kind of the admin side. Like you want to get rid of the admin side because then you can start to focus on the longevity of your business, how you're going to scale new products. Like you can start to think with the CEO cap instead of the like, I got to do everything else going on in the business, right? And so I made that decision because I think that's what's necessary. You're going to have to build a team. You're going to have to learn how to outsource. You're going to have to learn how to delegate, and really finding the right people is key to scaling, in my opinion. So it comes with, it's one thing to get $100,000 that comes from marketing, But to scale to 7 figures, like that's going to come with systems. That's going to come with the team you have, new ideas. So that's why, that's what I would recommend for someone that's like, where do I turn to first?
Mm-hmm. And I think that this concept of like almost like slowing down to speed up, right? So it's like, okay, I need to pivot because this is too much, right? Let me slow down enough to build my team out so that we can really scale. So when you think about the skill set required, right? And we think about personal development all the time, like your core skill is marketing and teaching people, how to actually monetize their Instagram. But when you start to scale, the skill sometimes shifts from like your core skill to also the skill of like managing people, understanding personalities. When you say finding the right people, it's hard to find the right people if you don't even know like who you are and how you communicate, right? So there's like a lot of personal work that happens. So what was that side of it like for you?
That part was hard. Learning. I've gone through like maybe 3 assistants because I didn't have the right hiring practices. Like I didn't have the best vetting, system to know like if this person is going to be able to do the job, if they're a good fit for the company. And so I had to learn through trial and error how to manage people, as you were saying. And it wasn't until I hired an online business manager to manage the team for me. So she is more well-versed. She's in her zone of genius. So I don't have to learn every single thing, every single aspect about hiring and interviewing and like whatever team management. Like I know the basics, which is good, but that is her expertise. So
she's
once
like your
I
operations
realized,
manager, like your day-to-day?
She's my operations manager, and she has been so great. So yeah, that's kind of how I learned. All right, maybe I'm not the smartest. I'm not going to be the one to learn this. Let me hire someone that's an expert in this field.
Yeah. And I think that that's like a big piece that people maybe wait a little bit too long to kind of invest in, is having someone who can really drive the thing, right? Because most CEOs do tend to have more of like that visionary style. So it's like, okay, I need to be able to work on the business, not in the business. Who can show up every day and like make these systems work, make these people work? How did you go about finding that person or deciding they were a good fit?
I actually got a recommendation. So I got a referral for her, which I think is great. So instead of just finding people that you don't know, I went to other, people that were in a similar business as mine. We were messaging each other on Instagram. We give each other tips and stuff for our business. And so I went to one of those people and she was like, hey, I have this OBM, like online business manager. She's great. She does this. She has this credentials. And I said, cool, like, let me meet her. Let me interview her. And from the interview alone, I definitely got the energy. Like, not only did she have the credentials, the experience, but she also had like this mindset of I'm solution oriented instead of being problem focused. And so I realized that is so important when it comes to employing people, is like, are they going to bring you problems and be like, what do I do? Like, or are they going to say like, here are 3 solutions. Please let me know which one works. Like, what's your opinion? And I'd much rather have the person. So I save my time. I still operate in my zone of genius. Yeah.
I've been toying with the idea of kind of hiring that type of person for my personal life, to be completely honest, because the effectiveness of our ops manager is just so bomb, because I can just show up and coach and create content for my clients, and she runs it. And so I've been experiencing this thing in my personal life where I'm like, I am losing money grocery shopping, folding laundry, organizing. Like, we're getting ready to shift seasons right now. And it's like, you don't really think about how much time stuff takes until you look up and it's been 2 hours and you folded the laundry only to realize like, oh, this is all winter clothes. These need to go up and I need to pull out the spring clothes, right? So I'm like just trying to think about, like, I wrote a position yesterday, like, I want a house manager. Like, I was in a small group with this lady. She was a house manager for this wealthy family for like 20 years, and she loved it, right? So I'm like, but I don't necessarily think that we have to, be uber millionaires to support ourselves with these things, right? Like many millennials We went away from home to go and start our careers. And so when we start having children and raising families, we don't necessarily have that old school village, unfortunately. And I can rant about that today, like bring back the village, please. But even here in Atlanta, all of my family members are literally 45 minutes to an hour away, right? So when it comes to daily support, it's just impossible. And so I have a choice now, like either my well-being is going to suffer, right? Because I'm going to essentially have to just be like this domesticated house worker mom.
Yep.
And no longer will I be able to do what brings me alive, which is working and creating and working with people, right? And then that's going to negatively impact my children. So I've just been doing the numbers, trying to figure out like, how am I going to really get a full-time or a part-time person to come in and help me run this machine? Because that's what it is.
Yes.
So when it comes to kind of thinking about strategy, right? Because I feel like like we talk about strategy with business, and that's like, to me, I'm like taking things that have worked in business and I'm now starting to apply them to my personal life because it's a whole job, right?
Yep.
So when it comes to strategy and planning, and I've seen you talk about, like batch content, like what does that look like for you? Like when do you actually plan versus execute versus, kind of put things on autopilot?
Well, now that I'm in a live launch business model, meaning like every quarter, we have to do a launch instead of like the evergreen where you just sell every single day. It's a lot easier to plan life in that sense. Okay. Like I still have my evergreen products, but we want the bread and butter to come from my high ticket offer. And so that comes with a live launch. So every single time we do a launch, there's a template that we follow. And, this is something my online manager has done, but she has created like a blueprint of like a checklist of what needs to be done before we launch. So there's a lot of prep, there's a lot of planning before the public knows, hey guys, we have this coming out again, or hey, I'm doing another webinar. So there's kind of seasons for the planning and the prep versus like, okay, we're good to go. Like the back end's all figured out, the software is all done, the content is already done. Now we got to put it out there. So from planning to putting it out there and executing, for my business, at least, it's been like a quarterly thing, a seasonal thing. So I like that approach now instead of just like figuring out day to day, what am I going to do? What do I need to do today?
Talk to us about the difference though, right? So if someone is not as familiar with the lingo between like a live launch and evergreen, like what is like someone who has an evergreen based product or business right now, like what do you mean by that?
So evergreen means that your product or service is available at all times. So there's not like a doors open period where people can only get it for a limited time and then a doors closed where they absolutely don't have access to it. Means that your product and service is all the time available, and that's evergreen. Versus a live launch, there is a window. So it's like, okay, I'm only offering my coaching program, for instance, for April. Like you got to get in right now. By March 31st, so you can have the April slots, and then you do it again next month. So it's not always available where people could just sign up, and that's the difference.
Yeah. And so when it comes to, okay, so I'm gonna step back a little bit and talk about people who are looking to start marketing their business online, right? If they're thinking about, okay, I need to have content maybe 5 to 7 days a week. And then they start thinking about what that looks like. And they're instantly going into this state of like overwhelmed, right? I feel overwhelmed. I feel like I can't be consistent. Something else that I saw you share one day was, there's no point in being consistent without a strategy, which I'm like, yeah, it's so true. Cause it's like, why post every day if you don't have anywhere for them to go on the back end, right? But again, someone is listening to this episode right now and they're like, that is so much work. And I feel paralyzed even thinking about it. What do you feel like allows people to get a grip on all of these moving pieces when it comes to online marketing?
Well, when it comes to content creation, I think people are overwhelmed because they don't have the right tools to get it done fast and get it done effectively. For instance, when I was, marketing my first ebook and when I was building to 6 figures, it took me only 15 minutes a day to create my content and then another 15 to 30 minutes to engage with everyone that commented, that like got back to my story, that DM'd me. So it did not take me long because I had systems to work for me. I used Canva, right? There's 1,000,005 social media templates on Canva. And so that's a great resource to use. Another resource is called Creative Market. And so they have Instagram bundles where you can buy a whole pack, like 365 days pack. So you don't even have to think of like, what content do I have to make? I mean, it's customizable to the sense that you'll have to put your own text for sure. And then you can change the colors, but the design is already done. And that takes a lot of the headache away. So you have to understand like what works for your schedule, what works for your routine. Batching your content can come in handy too. So a lot of people that are working 9 to 5, maybe you don't have time to create content right before going to work like how I did, but can you take out an hour every Sunday to look through reels, see what's trending, and then, you know, do like 3 to 4 reels in that same setting? You know, can you do that? So you have to ask yourself, what systems can I implement? What tools can I block out my calendar to actually get this done? And how can I make it easy on myself?
Yeah, that's cool. Now, I've seen you share several times the work of James Clear, Atomic Habit, which we're big fans of over here. So when it comes to creating healthy habits, healthy environments, even just also that mindset piece of it, what has that journey been like for you?
Yeah, so I felt like a failure when my first business didn't turn out. Like when I was in the music industry and I had to make that hard decision to say, hey, you know, my artist, like I can't manage you anymore. I felt super defeated. And I was in, you know, a mindset where I was like, dang, like maybe this entrepreneurship thing isn't for me. Like I know I don't want to work though. So what do I need to do to get myself out of this situation as quickly as possible? And so I started reading a lot of mindset books. I started reading, in particular, money mindset books, because I figured that, you know, I want to be a millionaire before I'm 30. I want to be a millionaire in general. So I need to learn about money. I need to learn about wealth. And so I read Think and Grow Rich, which is a great money mindset book. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then I read this book called The Automatic Millionaire. And so those 3 books set me up with the right mindset to even attract money and learn how to maintain it and learn how to manage it, but also practical steps too. Like this is how you get your personal finances in order. And honestly, once I learned about personal finances, that helped with the business side too. That really helped me form the right habits to operate as a business owner.
Yeah, and I think that something that really stood out to me about you was the constant sharing of facts around statistics when it comes to Black wealth, right? And we're in this place now, especially, you know, in the era of like NFTs and cryptocurrency, that we're really starting to lean into different ways for us to not only increase our income, but to diversify our portfolio. And really just, we've seen a plethora of knowledge being just exposed, right? So when you think about, you know, ultimately like why you're doing this, it feels like you have a strong desire to contribute to the wealth amongst Black people. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's super important. That's always been my mission, is to teach young Black millennials how they can get more economic power, because right now it's hard. Like, you know, we have student debt. The housing market is astronomical. Like we can't get houses like as previous generations did. So we're dealing with our own generational setbacks that has not affected the previous generations like boomers and Gen X as much, because they didn't have the crippling debt. They didn't have the cost of living going crazy. They didn't have crazy inflation. And so I always want to tell people how you have to earn multiple streams of income. Like there's no other option. You cannot rely on your 9 to 5 if you want to retire wealthy, if you want to make sure you are financially secure. And so it's important to me because Black people, Black women, like we have always been even further back than others. So I want to bring that to light. I want to show them that, okay, there is no scarcity of money. Like money is abundant. There is so much of it. You just have to claim, your slice of the pie, and you're going to have to do X, Y, Z to do that. So my mission is always showing people like the statistics of where we are at, because that lets them know like, oh shoot, like I thought I was okay, but actually maybe I'm not. I don't have a 3-month emergency fund. I don't even have $1,000 savings. I don't have a investment, portfolio. And all of this is very critical to financial health. And they don't teach us this in schools. So I'm an advocate for it.
Yeah. So what has it been like for you when it comes to just even experiencing, the increase in income, right? Like, have you dealt with any days where you're like, okay, this was a good lunch, now I gotta make double, right? Like, we go through this thing where we kind of are into this chase, like we get into this chase that becomes addictive, right? Have you ever experienced the pressure of, okay, now you've tasted it, you want a little bit more? And if so, how do you kind of center yourself when it comes to not feeling like you have to almost constantly outdo yourself?
Yeah. So I definitely had that problem when I was trying to chase 7 figures and it didn't happen. I was upset. I was upset at myself. I was like, dang, like, it must be me. I didn't do this, or like maybe whatever is to blame. And it wasn't until I got checked. Like I had my husband sit me down and he was like, look, you literally earned $500,000 in 12 months as a 26-year-old. Like, I don't know why you are feeling this way. You need to see how far you've come. You need to give yourself praise. You need to not self-criticize. Like I was also in that spiral of like comparing to others that, well, dang, she's 29 and she made her million. Like I need to get there. And so it wasn't until he stepped in and was like, you're being a little silly. did I sit there and I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, I'm really good. If I don't hit my marks, okay, like I'm fine. Or if I don't double what I made last year, okay, like I'm going to be good. So I just needed to have that reality check from someone else. It didn't come from me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. And I love the fact that you have a husband that can balance you out, right? Because I mean, that's something that I think, unfortunately, with when you talk about things that impact us that other generations haven't dealt with, and one of the biggest things is social media, right? It's that comparison trap. And, people have always competed against other people, when it comes to who's keeping up with the Joneses, right? As my mama would say. Yep. But I think that even more so now, the pressure is almost like inescapable. And so one of the things that, has to evolve for us from a mindset and a mental standpoint, a mental health standpoint, is figuring out, what do I need to do to protect myself from envy, jealousy, comparing, right? Because I mean, I think I was kind of in that same space when I was 30, and I'm about to be 37 now. Dang, I'm getting old. But I remember like a million before 30, right? And I hit it, it was like, those were my glory days. But even then, it was just like it was the chase, right? It was like, oh, I can't wait to post these earnings on social media. I'm gonna get more people join, it was just like this constant, like, I gotta be better than my last month, right? And I think that eventually I had to do the work to address what we call in psychology, this hedonic treadmill that we get on, which is basically, as humans, we adapt to every environment. So that means you can go and get, the Porsche, and then as soon as you get the Porsche, you want the Lamborghini, Right. But if you cannot find joy in like the present and the now, nothing will ever be enough. Like it'll always be fleeting.
Right.
So I think that I love, that so many of us now are becoming educated on financial wealth and, trying to earn, but I also love to overlay that with making sure that we understand, like, even with or without it, right? Like we're gonna have up and down seasons as business owners, but the core of like who you are, right? Your ethics, your identity really remains the same. And I can say that from personal experience. Like I've had up and down seasons, and I'll have a month where I'm like, dang, like I'm really down, but nothing about me feels different. You know, like I'm still hilarious, like I still am creative, like I still got ideas flowing, like who you are doesn't necessarily change, right? And so it's kind of tapping into that power. So when it comes to, and I'm coming back to social one more time, because I think this is another big piece of it that I see, people struggle with being able to show up as themselves, right? So we find ourselves seeing the same damn content, everybody using the same music, the same reels, right? And it's like, to some degree, I get it, right? It's like, okay, let's go find the music that's trending. The problem that I have is people selling themselves short on being able to create authentic content, because they're not doing the work to figure out like what they are good at creating, right? So when you think about like your creative process, and I know that you said that you are an introvert, and this is a safe space for us introverts, right? You know, how do you kind of go inward, like, okay, what's my style? Like, what am I gonna put on this to kind of give it my spice? Like, what is that like for you?
Yep. So I agree. I think you need to have some element of originality, even if you're taking something that's trending and you're recreating it. That's, if you go back to my 2020 post, that's all I did. So yes, the post existed on some other account probably, but I put my own words to it. I put my own spin on it. I put my own graphic design to it. And that ended up being a trend that a lot of people started to copy. And that's when you know you're doing something right. Like when you are the trendsetter, like you are the innovator. And to really succeed in business, you can't be the copycat. You can't be the one that's like, I'm just going to do what so-and-so did because like it worked for them. Like to an extent, you need to study your competitors. You need to figure out what works, but you do need to show up as yourself too. You need that element of authenticity, especially online. Like people can see through the content. Like they really can see through, like, are you really confident as a person? Are you just reposting a bunch of stuff and it's all grainy from other screenshots? Like it makes such a difference. So you have to be true to yourself. And yeah, maybe you have to look in the mirror first and figure out, okay, what does being me look like?
Yeah.
What does it look like in terms of branding? What does it look like in terms of my voice? And figuring out how you can put your own spin on things is how you could be a little bit more original. And that is important.
Yeah. So how do you deal with internet trolls?
So when I first was growing my page, I got a lot of that. Like I got a lot of people being like, oh, she made that much money, but she still got a gap in her teeth. Like she ain't real. And I'm like, look, just because I don't have a problem with my gap, like whatever. Right. People come to some crazy conclusions and they be in your comments saying some crazy stuff. But I would say 99% of the people that follow me, are positive. Like the other 1% that stumble across my page and have something crazy to say, I will either, if I feel like it, I will talk smack back if I feel like it. Probably not the best thing, but or I will just straight up delete it. Or third option, I will show my followers and be like, look at this fool, like look at this person being crazy. And then a lot of people end up coming to my defense. Like I don't even have to say anything anymore because I created such a community where people are like, nah, you wrong for saying that. Like they will come to my defense in general. So I deal with it now by just like deleting the comments, making fun of myself, not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I think that I've gotten to this space where, well, I was in a season where there were some things that was on the internet that just like pissed me off to my core, like just so untrue that I was just like, you know what? Y'all not about to get nothing, you know, like this is like you all, I don't have to show up. Like this is really not even making me money. Like I'm just here to help y'all, you know? And so sometimes you get to the place where you just like, y'all just on punishment for a year. And so like, I don't know if, you know, that was just like a season, but I know that for me, a big part of my evolution, right? Because I come from like a sales and marketing background, like went from posting, you know, my life every day on Instagram to once I started having children and having the need for more privacy, I was just like burnt out, right? So I'm in this, and I think it's okay. Like I think it's okay to have seasons where you pull back, right? Because something that I was dealing with was not even necessarily just negativity online, but I could not stop thinking about content. Like everything was content for me. Like I would be in the shower, like, oh, this is what I'm gonna write for my caption. Or when I go on this trip,
right.
like it was consuming my thoughts because I loved creating it. And so, you know, I needed to be able to have a pause where I could be present, because I was noticing like, oh my God, like I'm here with my kids and they do something funny. And the first thing that comes to my mind is like, damn, that could have been a viral TikTok. You know, I'm like, this shit is not healthy.
Right. No, instead of just enjoying the moment. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Like once you become a creator, you always have that mindset where you're like, even a thought, you're like, dang, I could turn that into a tweet. Like, no, that definitely happens. But you're right. You have to figure out, you got to set your own boundaries. Like, for instance, on my phone, I have a sleep timer. And so if you go in your settings, you have the screen time little app. And I set my screen time. Everything is locked out. I cannot go on any of my apps except for like texting and my alarm clock after 9:30 p.m. every single night. And then I also have a time limit on certain apps. So I can only scroll on TikTok for 30 minutes. I can only scroll on Instagram for an hour. You know, sometimes I ignore it because I gotta like work on Instagram too. But I set up those limits because I would be that person like all night thinking about, dang, what do I gotta create tomorrow? Let me study. Let me see what my competitors posted. Like, let me do this. And I'm like, I cannot be in that side of my brain all the time. It is not good.
Yeah. And again, these are not things that were in the books 10 years ago. Like Think and Grow Rich told us, like, set a boundary for TikTok for 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So like, these are the things that we're having to live through, but also create, you know, for the next generation, even people that we're coaching, right? It's like, okay, I've been there. Like I was an early adopter to Instagram when people just used it for filters, right? And so it's like, after building a business for almost 10 years on Instagram, I can help you see the things that you don't know are coming, right? And so I love the fact that you have like those healthy boundaries. So I want to end and kind of wrap up with some rapid fire questions, if you don't mind. This has been a joy. We'll have to definitely have you back. You already mentioned a few books, but we are big readers over here. So are there any other books that either you're reading right now or that you absolutely like, y'all got to read this?
Yeah, so I read this book back in college, but it absolutely kind of shaped my life, at least my business side. So it's called The 4-Hour Work Week. All right, The 4-Hour Work Week. So that lets you, it's all about automations. It's all about delegation, like all of the things that you can do so you can work less and have people pick up, you know, where you don't have to. So that's been my goal ever since becoming an entrepreneur. Like, all right, I got to get my systems in place right now. I got to automate as much as possible. So 4-hour work week.
The 4-hour work week, everybody knows like the 4-hour work week was the reason why I quit my job. Like I was on jury duty. I was reading the book while I'm in court for 2 weeks. And I maybe stayed at work maybe like 3 additional weeks after that. Cause I was like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You know, like once you see that lifestyle, you're like, and things have changed so much, but also I would just, and I'm a Tim fan, so I'm stamping approval of this, but also his podcast is like my go-to too. So okay, keep going.
Yes. There's this other book called Yes. And I'm trying to remember the full name. It's like Yes, and then 50 Ways That Scientifically Improve Your Marketing or something. It's a subtitle. And it's a short book, it's a short read, but it has all these like random studies that have been applied. Like this study doesn't make any correlation with marketing, but here's how you can use it for your marketing. Like, and so it has all these type of things that help you out with your copywriting, your email marketing, I mean, your business in general. So I read that recently and it's good for marketing and advertising.
Okay.
Yep.
So what about podcasts? You listen to them? Any favorites?
I do not listen to podcasts. I never really got onto that. I don't even watch YouTube either.
Oh, wow.
So my source of just like inspiration is mainly coming from books.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, what I will say is, and this is my new mom advice. Once you have those babies, go ahead and get you an Audible account, right? Because see, I never listened to audiobooks. Like I always was just a reader. But now that I have to commute, or you know, you were breastfeeding, or you got one hand, but you're gonna have two hands. It's like the easiest thing. Like podcasts and Audible are gonna like give you like that kind of outlet that you need. The other thing that I've been doing that people think I'm crazy now is that I have been doing a lot of like fiction podcasts. So they'll have things like, you know, shows that you can listen to, murder mysteries, or I like a lot of pandemic stuff. I have a very dark side.
Okay. All right. Okay.
There's really cool stuff that allows you. And I think that this helps like marketers and business people to not always just do self-help. Cause you know, we love that, right? Like anything that's going to grow our business. But then when you can just like escape and listen to like, you know, a romance or a comedy, like it's good for the soul.
Right.
Okay,
for
so
sure.
No podcast, no YouTube. So what about gadgets or tools or systems? So this could be, you know, your Canvas of the world. This could be, you know, if you actually have like a physical gadget that you like, anything like that.
Okay. So I use ClickUp as my project management tool. And I use Slack as the communication device for our team. So that's pretty much what I'm in on a day-to-day. In terms of like tools that help me run my business. Physical gadgets, I mean, my phone for sure. But I have, you know, I have an Alexa Echo and I have an Alexa Show. And I do use that to remind me like when it has my calendar sync to it. So it lets me know, hey, you have a meeting in 30 minutes, whatever. And I order my groceries all the time with Instacart. Like I do not even go to the grocery store anymore. I just deliver because I lived in New York for such a long time. And I was like, that was so convenient. That is now my habit. So I always use that app.
Yeah. Definitely Instacarting over here. I love that. Okay. So when you think about like your favorite thing to do, right? And so I don't know if that's like a hobby or something that maybe you don't even get to do that often, but like if you had to think about like, this is my favorite, like just thing to do, what is that?
Ooh, so I'll name a few. So my husband and I are like really into Marvel. So we'll watch like the latest Marvel series, whatever, on Disney Plus all the time. And there's a new one out. So we've been watching that. That's nice. I always try to get a little daily walk in. That's something I like to do leisurely, like put my phone away, just put my headphones on and just walk for at least like 10, 15 minutes. And I was going to say another, but I can't remember. I can't remember right now. But I do like to do those leisurely, like just watch movies or watch TV shows, you know, catch up on my shows, walk.
Yeah, I love that. So if someone wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
So you guys can find me at Ariel Carr on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm pretty active over there as well. If you need some resources, so if you're wondering, okay, what was that first book that got her to the 100K mark? I've revised it. So it's now called the E-Money Bundle. You guys could go through the link in my bio that is on my Instagram or my Twitter, and it's right there. It's called the E-Money Bundle.
I love it. Well, this has been amazing. I am so impressed with everything that you're bringing into the world, all the money you're making, and you got 2 whole babies. Like I got to bring you on the show. After you have the babies, you're going to have like a whole new skill set and we're going to have to be like, okay, come back.
I'm gonna be getting right. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.